Welcome to another edition of Jesus Loves Joe. I'm Dan Britton, pastor of Equipping and Apologetics here at Hill Country Fellowship, and also the director of our Ratio Christi College Prep chapter, of which Shelby here today is one of our members. And we've been picking topics of interest. So Shelby, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm 16 years old. I'm a freshman in Kingsland Charter School. I'm an artist and I love to play video games.
Awesome. How'd you become part of our group?
Well, I started coming on Wednesday nights at youth, and it wasn't really grabbing my interest because my questions about my faith weren't being answered, but apologetics really drew me in because my questions were finally being answered.
Mm-hmm. Well, you picked one of the toughest topics for your little discussion with me today. Can you tell me what it is and why you chose it?
I chose abortion because there's not enough light shed on the topic, and not a lot of people like talking about it, but it needs to be talked about.
Mm-hmm. So what are some arguments that you find people using to defend abortion?
It's a clump of cells.
Mm-hmm.
My body, my choice, and it's not alive until it takes its first breath.
Mm-hmm. Those are all ones we've heard before. Well, what about the whole clump of cells thing? How would you, if somebody says it's just a clump of cells, how would you respond to that?
I mean, if you think about it, we're all a clump of cells if you want to put it that way.
Yeah, you're a 16-year-old clump of cells.
You're not wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at ultrasounds, you can see that it's just not a random clump of cells and that it's a tiny human.
Yes, absolutely. The ultrasound has revolutionized what we know about fetal development. So, one of the other questions that people will ask about in defending the right to an abortion is the issue of rape or incest. If you get raped or you're a victim of incest, you should have the right to terminate that child. How do you respond to that?
Well, first of all, at most, the rate of getting pregnant from rape or incest is 3%. Mm-hmm. But on average, it's less than 0.5%. So it's not a thing to worry about, you know?
Yeah.
Plus, why should an innocent soul, a living being, be punished for the wrongdoings of another?
You're referring, of course, to the baby.
Yes.
In the womb, yeah. Well, one of the other arguments we hear is that abortion should be legal because there are simply too many people in the world.
There's no such thing as overpopulation.
How so?
There's way too many death rates and birth rates for that.
Mm-hmm. And the whole thing with birth rate of 2.0 per couple, you know, two people have two babies, is not being borne out in culture today. There's very, very few ethnic groups that are having more than 2 children per couple. So actually that's not a good argument either. One of the biggest arguments for abortion, and if you remember the Scott Klusendorf debate, was the woman from the ACLU made the point that she presented it that the strongest argument was that it was legal. Mm-hmm. So how would you respond to that? Because it is legal. So,
by law, if you kill a pregnant woman, it's considered a double homicide. So they're saying that that baby is another life, another person. But yet, people want to say that it's not a person. Well, the law says that it's okay to do that because it's not a person, but yet it contradicts itself by saying, well, it is a person if they get murdered, but the mother and the child get murdered.
Yeah. So one of the other things about the legality of abortion, we can go back to the Civil War and see something else that was legal.
Slavery.
Yeah.
Slavery was very wrong, and
But it was legal
it was legal
until it changed, until the law changed. Briefly, one of the arguments that Scott put forth about being able to argue against abortion was he used an acronym called SLED, S-L-E-D. Can you explain what those letters indicate?
Size, level of development, environment, and degree of dependency. Size. Okay. Just a toddler is smaller than you.
Oh, yeah.
Does that make it less human than you?
Not really.
So why does size matter? No?
Well, that's what they argue.
Doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. And what about the L?
Level of development. A high school student is intellectually less developed than a college student. Does that mean they're less human?
Less viable. In the E?
Environment. When you wake up in the morning and you go to the kitchen, are you less human when you went into that room?
No. But I think the point there is we're looking at two different environments. One of them is within the womb and one of them is outside the womb. Because people will argue that if it's in the womb, it doesn't count. But the simple truth is it does count. Yes. It's just the environment is different. And then the degree of dependency is a big one.
It's really tough to discuss this one because children with severe autism are very dependent on their caretakers, their guardians, and people that have problems are very dependent on their medication to function in society. But does that make them any different than anyone else? Are they not human?
No, we know quite a few families that have severely dependent children, some of them, quite old, 30, 40-year-old children that can't function by themselves. But what does, isn't there a country somewhere that it's almost completely done away with Down syndrome children, babies?
Iceland.
Okay, we were talking about that earlier. And why is that? What's made Iceland have that distinction?
They find out that the child has Down syndrome and they abort them.
Okay, so as we close, what's one thing you'd like to leave us with that you'd like to share with your peers, with your friends, with families? Because obviously this is a really, really hot topic in culture today. Just tremendous battles going on everywhere, Planned Parenthood and everything. But what would you like to kind of leave it with today?
We need to stand up for those little voices that can't speak for themselves. We need to tell people the truth. We need to talk about it more because it's so important that we save those little lives. Because without them, we won't be here. We wouldn't be here if...
Yeah. All right, well, Shelby, thank you very much today. And again, we thank Jesus Loves Joe for hosting another video with Apologetics students. The key word today, though, is, or for the week, is beaches, which will get you a free coffee at Mojo's in Burnett. So remember that keyword, beaches. I'm Dan Britton, and thank you again for tuning in.